compressions, you would. If you are doing, whether it's a Zoll or whether it's one of Stryker's life packs, you're going to have to pause compressions to analyze the heart's rhythm no matter what. Okay. With manual compressions, you would then, if it says shock, you would have to stop your compressions and whatever. But with this, you can actually do compressions through a shock. So you're maximizing your time on the chest. So you've got it paused, it says shock advised. You go ahead and you press play again, you got your compressions going, and you can shock right through those compressions.
Still stand back.
Right. Yes.
Anyway, we have a recommendation from the fire chiefs. After the presentation, we asked a committee of chiefs to get together and make a recommendation as to what they would recommend for the county. They came back with 12 units recommendation, a 12-unit recommendation, of which 8 would be going to the fire departments, 1 or 2 to the ambulance service, and 1 to the EMA, Emergency Management Group. What was that one? Oh, and 1 at the jail. So they were looking at those 12 units. During the commissioners' meeting, one of the commissioners indicated that he didn't believe that we should be providing or actually be 2 units to the ambulance service since they're a private service. I'm not sure that I agree with that, but there's an interlocal agreement that we can do that and still maintain the units as far as a county asset. I do believe that may be redundancy, though I may not agree with the reasoning, but the possibility of not providing to the fire or to the ambulance service is because of the potential of redundancy of we already have an EMS that possibly will be on site, except for maybe Clinton and Fairview, where those departments may not get there as fast as the ambulance might, or Cayuga for that matter. But we're looking at the possibility of redundancy for the cost. We've not had any heart attacks or anything that this would be used for that has been the same condition in the same area in the history of the county at this point, or at least the recorded history of the county at this point. They were also talking about the possibility that if a unit is on a person from a particular fire department, it would stay on that person until they got to whatever the destination was. With that being said, though, they would give the unit that's on the ambulance to the fire department so that they're not without one. You're looking at possibly an hour, 2 hours, maybe even up to 4 hours before that unit would be returned to the department. In the fire department, when I was in fire department, a lot of times the firemen would either drive or ride with the unit to get to the hospital. You either came back immediately or you were there for a while. So you never knew when you were going to come back, but you could come back with the unit. I don't know that there's a consensus between the commissioners at this point as far as that number of units because of between the 8 and the 12. I'm probably tending, well, I'm not going to say yet, but anyway, the units cost right now for the 8 units would be $134,344. Of which that is $16,793 a unit. I can provide this to you if you don't want to write it down. If we buy 10 units, there is a break in the price when we get to 10 units, but it's approximately $215 less per unit. So if we would go to the 10 units, that would reduce the cost to $16,578 per unit, but we would end up with 10 units. It still costs more though. With that, there's a service, I guess it's not, now it's a warranty or service, a maintenance agreement, I guess is a better description. That maintenance agreement is approximately $40,854 for 8 units, or $5,106 per unit. That doesn't vary depending whether we get 8 units or 10 units or 12 units for that matter. So those are the numbers in which we're looking at that we will be coming back to the council and be asking for the appropriation from ARP funds or from additional appropriations that fund isn't going to be available, but commissioners are going to recommend at least the 8 units, I know, and it could be possibly 12 when we get to that point. We're not asking for you to make a decision. Well, you can't make a decision tonight anyway, but either depending on how you feel about the units, we do have a commissioners meeting next Tuesday, a week from tomorrow. With that being said, if the council's ready to make a decision, or whether we need 10 days anyway to advertise if it's either ARP or additional funding, doesn't really matter. It's a matter of whether you're going to wait until your next council meeting or whether we do it as whenever the advertisements are appropriate.
Yes. The maintenance agreement, that's for 1 year?
No, so that would be it's a 1-year warranty with a 4-year maintenance agreement after that. So a total of 5 years, and that includes a specialized striker tech who comes out to each department on site every year for a preventative maintenance. So whether anything's wrong with it or not, or if the department breaks it or if something goes wrong, all costs associated with repairs are covered in that. So that would be all parts.
Are these repaired in the United States or in
Yes. They're repaired in the bay of the fire department.
Yeah,
so you don't have to ship it
station.
in. It's usually fixed within 24 to 48 hours of a.
And so what is there a requirement as far as certification to use it like a Zoll at one time, but now they're in all the malls?
Yeah. You don't have to have a certification. We highly recommend it just because the importance of what it's doing, and it's a piston firing device. So every year we prefer that it gets calibrated. There's no standardization or nothing written down that says that it needs to be calibrated every year, but we highly, highly recommend that.
As far as the county is concerned, we're going to recommend our fire departments that just our first responders on up, the ones that are allowed to do CPR, use these units as far as what the county purchases. We're not looking at these being distributed to the general public per se. One other thing is with the maintenance agreement, a battery at the end of 4 years, a battery replacement is allowed in that maintenance agreement. And the battery in itself is what's the cost on that?
I was just about to look. I know I've got it in here.
But it's a significant number on those.
A battery will run $565 a piece, and that's at current pricing today, and that's going to be so.
And it's 2 batteries that they'll replace, or just one?
That
Just
is.
2.
That's one additional. So you get one with the device and then one additional. So each battery is $565, but one is included with the device. The spare battery is $565.
But under the warranty, I guess.
Yeah, if you have
And
a
so-
battery that goes bad, we'll do a
Yes.
swap of them, so that's covered in your contract. So all parts, labor, travel, and battery
Okay.
replacements.
What happens after 5 years?
We can renew the program or the
Maintenance agreement?
yeah.
Okay.
And throw it away.
Will it last?
They'll last a lot longer than that. We just kind of do that in case a new device comes out. If you guys want to.
And the battery has an expected life of 4 years, and that's why we recommend 4 years of service, so that you make sure you're getting that free battery. You're obviously paying through the service plan, but it makes sure that each device gets a new battery before you have to re-up or drop the maintenance plan down the road.
One last comment. I am not a firefighter in the county, but I am a first responder, was an EMT. There's a lot of people around like that. I know a lot of our schools have the AEDs. Would you consider, commissioners, providing one to each of the school districts? I mean, they have a lot of major sports events, and there's lots of our citizens, at those, hundreds. Just a quick thought.
At our sporting events, typically there's an ambulance there, and again, that depends whether we provide them to our ambulances or not. I asked both north and south about their whether the fire rescue also attend those. They do not. The ambulance does at major events, hill climb, Little Italy, and whatever. But the ambulances would not have them. It would still have to come from the fire department unless we provide those. So that was one of the consideration. EMS, we were considering one for them, of which this would go to those particular events, and also possibly to other major events that fire departments or ambulance don't necessarily attend. Still a matter of discussion at this point, and welcome any comments. It's a hard decision.
Some other counties, the health departments kind of helped out. And
In Vigo, from my understanding, they took part of the COVID funding from that and applied it to, and then also used ARP funding. They did a combination of things, and from my understanding, other counties have done the same thing. Some of them have paid for it. None of them have paid for it themselves without the funding of the ARP or county funding, COVID funding, that is. I don't know of anybody actually just spending county appropriated monies that weren't associated with those. It's possible, I just don't know of them. It's a consideration, and
private or not, I don't care about that.
well, that's an interlocal agreement. We can get by whether they're private or not. It would still be a county asset. It gets back to whether we believe, whether the council and the commissioners, well, maybe more the commissioners, believe that this is actually a benefit for the cost. One person saved by any one of these units probably pays for this cost, but the quality of life, it's just a matter of where we don't necessarily need the replication of units, and that's where I'm having a little bit of a problem in my own mind about it as far as a recommendation goes. But we do have things going in different directions. The ambulance will use them if they'll use them. One of the other things that, if a consideration just for everybody's light of it, is that different departments, one of the interlocal agreements, part of it is that they'll maintain these units, and they will also train on these units. So that they'll have at least an annual training, and then they will have a continual maintenance of these in that agreement. Whoever we give these to will have that same agreement. With that being said, though, different departments will have different maintenance. It's just like anything. Some people do a level of maintenance up here, others will be, some don't do maintenance at all. Whether we actually give these, they trade them out from the ambulance service is maybe a little bit of an, because you may get one back that somebody didn't maintain, and then when you go to use, it doesn't function as well. So it's
something that we can train on. We have a system in place that if an ambulance were in a department were to, load up a patient that has one on it, we have you essentially take your compressor, leave your backwards, you take theirs, and they keep their compressor, and then that way you keep your, because the backboard, the compressor is where you get in the, how else to maintain and that kind of stuff.
There's workarounds, but these are things that we need to consider when things go out and when they come back and how they get swapped and maintained. So there's a number of issues with these things, and it's a matter of audits, it's a matter of how well the units, there's a workaround right there. So still, we're not asking you for 8 units, we're not asking you for 12 units yet. Have an opinion on this, please voice it before we actually get through our next meeting, when we all have probably make a decision on this from the commissioner side.
One thing I have is, because I'm all in favor of it, you can't put a value of somebody's life, and if we're going to put those on everywhere, that's fine. I have a problem putting it in. Will the county own those ones that the ambulance leaves for contract reasons or whatever, we get them back?
Yeah, even the fire department. So the fire department's on contract to the township trustees or to deliver. So they're actually private entities, potentially semi-private entities in themselves. I've asked John Spur to draft our agreements, and the county will match all the units. It'll be a lease land, if you will. All the above, but we will be doing that with all of them, not just with ambulance service, if they would go to the ambulance service. But
Could be next.
but that's a good point, very good point. But the county will maintain ownership.
I've been all over every place he's been. He doesn't remember me, but I've been there.
I recognize you.
I've been to a lot of place demonstrations. I know Clay County's just harmony just falls. Yep.
I've been on fire for 25 years, and I never had to do CPR. I had to put my hand on one guy who started out, and he fell off of a curb, and his heart came back, and so I guess I have to save. I do CPR ever other than that. I just put my hand on him. That's good.
So your meeting next Tuesday, you expect to have a kind of more decision?
Yeah, and again, please weigh in on this. It's one commissioner commissioner wants all 12, another one just wants 8 or 9, I guess. And I'm unfortunately floating between the two, still trying to justify in my mind the redundancy of some of this. I believe the deputy chief down at Riley for him, and they have on board for about a month, and they've had 2 people use it, and the quality of life that out were just, it's a game changer. I believe it's our well worthwhile, and I believe that we should be providing them in the county. If we were going to provide EMS, this is one of those units that actually make a difference.
Like Kelly mentioned earlier, I would like to see them in school. If we could afford, we need to put them there. I mean, they have a lot of problems.
Well, again, make your,
Can we email you with any recommendations?
yeah, or talk to me any which way that you can. I'll present all the commissioners, but do let me know your thoughts, and it does make a difference. I don't know that there's a right decision to provide as many or as few. There's a right decision. I just don't know what that is.
I've just seen on the school bus with the kids up on the last year,
Yes.
on a young man on the bus. He said he can fall around, and so
Right.
it's hard to do that in the bus with the seats and stuff. So she's outside, but
Well, good for
I
her.
think it'd be very beneficial if we could have this. We could come up with
But they're, with the means plus or minus, are about $21,000 is what they are. Know to what degree we have our ARP funds obligated at this point. I know we obliged some of those funds, but I don't know if they were ever got to the point that they actually felt or were used. I think because were some of those funds.
700,000 used out of that ARP money for.
And I think we had 3.5 million? 3 million? 3 million. Yeah.
There should be plenty of money there, I would think.
I don't think we obliged it any place else that I'm aware of anyway. But please do call me, or if you want to text me or email me, please do, and I'll make sure that the other commissioners get your feelings as well. Same thing with the public. If there's somebody that has an opinion on this, please do make us aware of what your opinions are. The fire chiefs have spoken. They believe they want 12 units. Now, they didn't consider the schools, I don't think. I'm not sure that even came up with them. I wasn't there at their meeting, but we do have that in writing from them.
What's your feelings on Mark? I was for putting them in the schools and stuff.
I think it'd be great in the schools. It wasn't discussed at the meeting. The fire chief's meeting was in the end of July, and they came up with these numbers, and they had their reasoning for it. EMS was there. 911 director and his deputy were there. I was there. All the fire departments were represented. So
I think it'd be a great tool for them. I mean, our fire departments do such an excellent job now, you know.
But you're talking about somebody having a heart attack on a bus. You're not going to have one on every bus.
Yeah.
But I could see having one at each school next to their AEDs. The one that they're saying for the EMA office would be a special event Lucas device, which would be right next to the AEDs that we put out, like at the county fair, and Hill Climb, Little Italy. They say they don't need any special training for it. You watched how it works. I would think the only difference between that and an AED is the AED talks you through putting it on. This device doesn't.
To the training point, the only, I guess, requirement, the state fire marshal has said you need to be an EMR, emergency responder.
First
essentially.
responder.
First responder. That is the level of credentialing that someone. So it couldn't just be anyone in the public, but a school nurse or any first responder, a sheriff, a police officer could do it.
But it could be taken, say if it was at South Vermillion by the lockers in that area where the AED's by the pool, I think. It could be taken out to the football field and put in the concession stand when there's a football game, and it could be moved around. It doesn't have to sit in one spot.
Most of the schools do have their volunteer fire department, relatively close.
There's for football, the state of Indiana requires, I think for football, maybe basketball, and a couple other sports, they have to have EMS on hand.
Problem is they leave sometimes to respond.
If they have another run, but
Yeah.
the fire department, the fire department might leave if there's a fire.
Yeah.
But typically you should have an ambulance and the fire department at the football games, I know at least. They use the UTV, the county UTV, and they have a gator that they use for north and south.
Do we have any kind of idea of what response times from like, say, Cleveland to North Land and then like Fairview or Clinton from South Land? I mean, is it unrealistic to think that they could be there in time, either like in a short
Are you talking
amount
about
of time?
ambulance or fire?
Either.
How fast they could respond to the school?
Right.
Well,
Quickly.
just south end, you have a manned fire department, so that would be a lot quicker to get to the high school or middle school area for a sporting event. Cayuga is a volunteer department, but they respond pretty quick. You know, I would say both of them within probably 4 or 5 minutes.
I mean, like, Van Dyne has about 500 miles. Maine is probably a little bit farther from Ohio, but, I mean, Central is relatively close to Clinton Fire Department.
Schools usually get special attention, I know,
And I,
it seems
all of
like,
them in
anyway.
one location, so I mean, that's basically the same response time.
We do have the response times for the ambulance as far as all runs go. We do have those by run and by month, by
And I
average.
think it's not important to have schools that are being redundant, like you said, like by putting them too close together.
Well, I would say if you were going to start buying them for the schools, start with the 2 high schools and maybe the 2 middle schools, because they both have contact sports, you know, which is where we have issues. Probably more with this, I mean, just from my point of view, parents are going to have heart attacks screaming at the coaches and the refs and the kids before the kids have a problem.
I hope I never have a heart attack. My luck be they tell me that.
Just get rid of it, keep on plugging.
All right, any other questions, any public comments?
Thank you.
I would say if nothing else on this one, at least try and get the 8 for the fire departments done, and then talk about more.
I think if we decide on a later date, we still have a handshake agreement that we'll be able to?
Yeah.
Yeah, yep, so the
For a period of
current
time.
pricing, is that what you're getting at?
Yes.
The current pricing, we do have a price increase October 1st, but as long as a decision is made prior to October 1st, we will honor the pricing that we've discussed, so, yep.
And the discount.
One thing that has changed also is that I think Michigan's ordered 75 units here, so we were going to be able to get them within a couple of weeks. Now I guess we're out
About
12 weeks.
So why couldn't we put our 8 on that Michigan order and get a better deal? That's what we are.
Cash on the barrel here.
If I could, I would.
But anyway, it's changed, some of the dynamics have changed even since we talked with them last, so we're out a little bit of time here before we can get the units. But October 1st, there will be a price increase, but I guess, anyway, come October 1st, so if we don't do it by then, then.
Thank you.
Sounds like we're on board, figure out how many you need.
So if anyone has ideas or where to place them, or the number, or concerns, questions, please email for the next commissioners meeting. Thank you, gentlemen, for your
Thank
presentation.
you.
Thank you.
Very informative.
Thank you, guys.
Anyway, to help probably.
All right, last call for comments, questions? All right, none? Entertain a motion to adjourn?
Can't have your heart attack yet.
We don't have a machine.